Hi, Jody Baptist here today, and I want to talk about the word perichoresis. Perichoresis. You've got that. That this is a word used in Christian theology to refer to the mutual indwelling and interpenetration within the Trinity of God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That perichoresis is used to explain the intimate fellowship or relations within the Trinity of mutual love and expresses the equality of the Trinity and the divine mutuality and intimacy. God, one being, but Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Indwelling in one another, yet not mingled or confused or coalesced. One God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And this word perichoresis, which, as I said, can mean interpenetration, mutual indwelling, has been traced back to the Greek fathers, to one of the Cappadocian fathers by the name of Gregory of Nazianzus in the 3rd century AD. And then the term was developed by John of Damascus, who lived from about 675 to 750 AD. And it was John of Damascus who wrote an exposition of the Orthodox faith and wrote about the perichoresis of the divine persons. The text that's used as a proof text for this verse is John 14:11, where Jesus said, "I am in the Father, and the Father in me." And it is in this indwelling, this interpenetration, the fellowship within the persons of the Trinity that we understand the word perichoresis. And in recent years it's been revived, reinvigorated, used by contemporary theologians such as Baxter Kruger, Jürgen Moltmann, Paul Fiddes, Miroslav Volf, and T.F. Torrance. Now you may not have come across this word, but it's interesting that Torrance says he has no hesitation in using the term perichoresis, and in his writing he says it's to help us to develop a careful theological way of interpreting the biblical teaching about the mutual indwelling of the Father and the Son and the Spirit, and thus about the communion of the Spirit, the way in which the three persons mutually dwell in one another and co-inhere or inexist in one another, while nevertheless remaining other than one another and distinct from one another. And after personal reflection, this does seem to me an excellent definition that captures the essential truth of the term perichoresis, that it helps us arrive at a deeper understanding and appreciation of mutuality, key word within the Trinity, and how the divine persons of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit interpenetrate and relate. Torrance goes on to argue that the concept of person generated through the doctrine of Christ and the Holy Spirit is one that is also applicable to interhuman relations, and in a created way reflecting the uncreated way in which it applies to the Trinitarian relations in God. So Torrance teaches us that out of the doctrine of Trinity developed the concept, or a new concept of person, unknown in human thought until then, and it's according to which the relations between the persons belong to what persons are. It does sound complicated, but through our understanding of the Trinity, we have a greater understanding of personhood. And that Trinitarian doctrine launched the concept of the person into the stream of human ideas and became a regular item in the furniture of daily thought and began to have an independent history of its own. Now some have dismissed perichoresis as a speculative concept, useful for academics and theologians, but really of no interest to the people in the pew in the normal Christian life. But really it does encapsulate a wonderful truth, and perichoresis does help our understanding of God and human personhood. And that it isn't just speculation. That speculation for some is important, but it goes beyond that. That some, as I say, have in some ways expressed reservations about the term perichoresis. One theologian or writer says that we dare not raise it to the status of a definitive statement about God. Yet to me it seems that in theological reflection and in seeing the outworking of a perichoretic understanding of the Trinity, it can lead us into a direction that can see a definitive statement about God, and as such can help us in a personal theology and personal practice and the care of people. That there is the emphasis on relationships that are sustained and fostered, even inspired by people touched by the triune God. That God is revealing himself through this analogy, through this word of perichoresis. And the same theologian even said that the analogy of perichoresis is appropriate to the being of God. And it's my contention that we should endorse perichoresis as consistent with our understanding of God, and argue that it's not just a speculation, a speculative concept, but true to divine revelation. And the Holy Spirit, we believe, is guiding us into all truth, showing us something that's profound about the heart of God. That God, who is intrinsically Trinitarian, the Christian God always Trinitarian, as Boff says, that also it's central to Trinitarian reflection. Keeping the original Greek word there is no translation that expressed its meaning as well. For in the Trinity all is perichoretic, said Boff. Union, love, hypostatic relationships. Relationships within the Trinity. Christians are drawn into this fellowship of loving relationships because God is a communal being who seeks fellowship within us. God is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. What wonderful communion there is within the Godhead. And the Trinity draws us into participation rather than speculation.